By the time that we had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy and closed the doors, the total debt on the business was $268,000.
Ooh.
It was this constant hope of, if me and my team can fight one more damn day, if we can just keep the doors open another day, maybe something will change.
How were you handling such pressure when you know you have $250,000 that's over your head and you're barely able to make the payments? My name is Romain, and for the past 10 years, I've been on a quest to tackle America's toughest personal finance situations. Leveraging my Ivy League master degree and personal experience, I've found solutions for what seems impossible. Will this be the one I cannot solve? Let's see what happens. Today I'm speaking with James, coming from Reno, Nevada. James, how are we doing?
If you asked me that question 3 months ago, I would have told you that I'm a very happy small business owner with a 4,000 square foot hobby and game store and the head of 5 employees. And we, made a living by, selling, happiness and entertainment to the fine citizens here of Reno. And, well, a lot has changed in the last 3 months, and I filed for corporate bankruptcy. That's why I felt the need to reach out to you today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the sector was hot for you. What's going on around that? You said that was 3 months ago, but since then, your story has went the wrong way. What happened?
It's just people having less money for frivolous spending. And you would see it, like I said, the store would be packed all the time, but the amount of money that people were coming and spending at the register would get less and less and less and less and less. And then the prices of these products are going up.
I see. Okay. So James, what's telling me though? So your store is packed, lower, your customers are spending less, but what happened?
You're looking at, rent due, which on a 4,000 square foot commercial space isn't cheap. You're looking at payroll due for 5 employees. And my employees were the highest paid employees in my industry, pretty much in my city, if not possibly even in the state of Nevada.
Well, tell me numbers. So how much was the 4,000 square foot shop per month?
So the price of rent plus CAM, which is your common area maintenance, I was paying about $6,000 a month just for the rent.
Okay. And how much were you paying your employees?
The actual payroll run was $16,000 a month, and that doesn't include me paying myself.
So that brings you at already $20,000. You haven't sold a product. You
also have to pay for the product. The profit margins in my industry, on average, are about 30%. Okay. So, in order to, make, $30,000, I have to put $100,000 out there for product to make $130,000 back. And that's if I sell out of everything I buy.
I see. So over the course of the recent month, your profit margins started to go downhill. What happened?
Eventually, we started having to, take out loans to cover our overhead. We started to have to take out loans to buy into, new products. We started having to just take on debt just to, kind of make ends meet. And it was always this hope that eventually something would have to change. It was so many just negatives all piled on top of each other. And as long as one of those negatives could flip, we could end up back in a profitable position again, like we were in 2022 and half of 2023 and all the years previously.
How much money are we speaking here, James, that you would take out as loans?
By the time that we had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy and closed the doors on May 1st, the total debt on the business was $268,000.
Ooh. And you were making payment on a monthly basis on that?
Everything except for the government EIDL loan. And that's because it being a government loan, it kind of worked like student loans, where as long as you shared kind of what your sales were and what your costs were and everything else, as long as you basically kept open books with the government would let you basically defer payments on those COVID loans.
Wait,
the revolving lines of credit I was making monthly payments on, yes.
Wait, $268,000. How come you didn't see the red before going to such an amount?
That situation built up over the course of years. And again, it was this constant hope of if me and my team can fight one more damn day, if we can just keep the doors open another day, maybe something will change, because everything we did constantly was showing us that we weren't the problem. The problem wasn't my staff. The problem wasn't the way that I ran the company. The problem were macroeconomic factors that I had no control over. I can't control how much I have to pay for a box of, Pokemon or for a D&D book. I can't control how comfortable my customers are with their disposable income. These are all factors that are so beyond my control. And so all you could do was fight, not only for me to keep my job, but for the 5 people who were relying on me to put food on their table, to keep their jobs and to keep their payroll flowing, so that they wouldn't have to enter, what, to be honest, right now is a pretty abysmal, pretty terrible job market.
How were you handling such pressure when you know you have $250,000 that's over your head, and you're barely able to make the payments, and people are counting on you for that? How do you handle such pressure? Hey guys, I have an announcement for the channel that might be relevant to many of you. Over the course of the past couple months, I've been receiving a lot of requests from people wanting to interact with me and maybe not wanting to come on the show. And so for a limited amount of time, I'm opening up my schedules for you guys to book consultations with me, speaking one-on-one. We only have limited spots, as I don't know how long I'm going to be running this for. And so if this is something that you're interested, check out the link in the description below as you think about enhancing your situation or get strategies to better your finances. And now let's get back to our content.
A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of caffeine, and just, it helps that I do love what I do. I love the industry that I'm in. It's the reason why I've been in it for 10 years. I was doing this. I was dealing in trading cards and role-playing games and all this stuff long before, there was, social media, before there was, Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, and, there was this craze around it. I've been in this industry from the beginning. So a combination of being surrounded by amazing people, being in an industry that you do genuinely love. You're not just chasing a fad. You're not just chasing a trend. You're here because this is the industry that you really believe in.
Had you considered downsizing, maybe restricting hours and maintaining you only as the sole worker to see how things were going to change, or going kind of on a more slower overhead cost? I mean, you were running hot on it.
Our industry has a very big problem when it comes to safety, especially since, scalping started becoming a thing in the collectibles market. So it's very important for the safety of my team to always have 2 people on staff at all times. It's to the point where, our alarm system was even equipped with a panic button, just in case of things like armed robbery and things like that. So there's a real safety aspect to what are you risking by running a skeleton crew.
I hear you. So you were probably moving quite a bit of, your top lines was pretty strong. How much were you making from that shop? At the top line, revenue-wise per month?
2021 and 2022 were our best years, and both those years we cleared just north of $1 million in sales top line.
Whoa! So that's about 90,000 or so per month, or so, almost 100K per month.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there was money in the game here. Okay.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, though, you decided to kind of shut operations. I'm sure it wasn't easy. How did you announce that to the teams? Well, I'm sure they were aware through that time.
We all knew that we were in a situation where, we were all just fighting to keep this dream alive. So, nobody had blinders on. Everyone was very aware of the situation. And so what I had done, and this is going to be a controversial take, and I know it's going to be a controversial take,
go ahead.
But knowing that I was going to file for corporate bankruptcy, and knowing that I was under an LLC and that I had certain legal and financial protections when I filed for that bankruptcy, I planned what our friend Jerome Powell would call a soft landing, which is I went to my payment processor that had one of my revolving lines of credit available, and I purposely took out an additional $30,000 to help cover payroll for an additional 6 weeks, to help cover rent for an additional, month, and to help cover my costs for filing for bankruptcy, on top of obviously the revenue we were going to bring in over those 6 weeks, being a part of that as well. But basically, I did 100% take on additional debt as the company to be able to mark a date on a calendar and tell my entire team, here's the date we're shutting down. Here's the date I'm filing for bankruptcy. You guys now have 6 weeks to hopefully figure something out.
Yeah, this is going to be controversial, mate. I mean, in some ways, that's the benefit of being under an LLC that protects your own assets.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's kind of playing the system that you leverage to your benefit as you were trying to transition. But how did you then protect yourself through that? Like, you've gone through bankruptcy on your LLC. How did you do on your own personal finance? What's going on?
So luckily for my own personal finances, almost everything I own is protected. They can't come after it. My money is either in my home equity or my money is in my retirement accounts, all of which no one can touch.
Did you layer your asset protection by using trusts?
No, all the money that I was making that wasn't going to costs of living on the month-to-month basis was just getting funneled into these, protected, taxable, accounts.
That's right, guys. And, that's what's very important as well when you're going through business creation. I like to use what is referred to as the real wealth metrics, is you want to make sure that you never pierce the corporate veil, which means tapping into business accounts to funnel personal expenses. Once you do that, there is, you kind of pierce that layer that protects you. And I'm glad that you've seemed to be very careful about that. But the idea when you build a business is to layer your business out to increase your asset protection. So one of the systems that I have personally for my own business is I have an operating business that sits in a state at which it's operating, managed by a holding company that you would usually like to position in states that gives you some form of anonymity. Personally, I like Wyoming. And then you funnel that through a revocable living trust. And by having all those, protections in place, you're kind of protecting your personal assets, right? So all of my properties are managed by a revocable trust that is fairly anonymous. So, and the revocable trust would be then placed under the state at which you operate. So for me, it is Nevada. And so in your case, you were pretty much able to kind of protect that, and that lended you to what is your current financial situation right now, despite having your company filing for bankruptcy. What's going on your side?
Obviously, at the current moment, I'm unemployed. We haven't brought this up yet, but I am married. I have a beautiful, wonderful wife. She was able to, keep her job because it was not attached to the business at all. It was completely, a separate ordeal from what I was doing. So basically where I'm at is I have a, $36,000 emergency fund, and, trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life, and whether or not I can afford to take the time to work on myself, to, work on things that got, put aside while I was, trying to manage this, what to me at least was, a pretty large, asset, a pretty large, company. The day-to-day operations, even at an owner level, were very demanding. So just a lot of things in my personal life fell by the wayside. And now that all of that stress is gone, all of that worry is gone, all of that concern is gone. The papers have been filed, the ink is dried, it's through the courts, it's done. The dream is dead, the story is dead, we have to move on. Basically, what I'd like to do is, to a certain extent, for a few more months, ideally 4 to 6 months, use some of my emergency fund to supplement the income I'm no longer bringing in, while I basically take a sabbatical and try to figure out what the next chapter of my life looks like, because obviously this chapter is done and I'm just staring at a blank page trying to figure out what to do and trying to figure out how much time can I buy myself because of the squirreling and the preparation that I did when things were going well.
That's fair. Tell me about more of that preparation. You have $36,000 in an emergency fund. You mentioned you have a house. What are we looking on that? You bought it for about $300,000 or so. How much equity is on that house?
So right now I get cold calls and offers for $475,000. And when I had the house appraised to have my PMI removed so I could lower my mortgage payments, it got approved at $508,000.
That was a pretty good deal. Okay, so we're going to put about $220,000 of value here. Wow, of equity. Oh, that is crazy. Wow, you were really at the boom on this. Okay, amazing. What else do you own?
Between checking and savings accounts, I have $2,400 just sitting in checking and savings.
Okay.
My total investment accounts is $124,000.
And that's retirement?
That is all retirement.
What type of retirement? Traditional or Roth?
I have about $70,000 sitting in a traditional IRA, a SEP IRA that was set up through the business. And then in my Roth, I have just over $45,000 in my Roth.
Okay. I mean, you may want to consider progressively shifting that money towards Roth. We don't know the taxation environment that's going to be presenting yourself by the time you want to retire. That's always something that I like to recommend. Okay, but that's a decent retirement account right here. And you mentioned you're 34, right?
Correct.
Tell me a little bit more about your wife. How do you guys manage your finances as a couple?
So I manage all of the finances. If she doesn't have to think about it, if she doesn't have to look at it, if she doesn't have to worry about it, she's all the happier. She would rather just, earn some money, have that money, managed and make sure that all the bills are paid and that, there's enough money extra for, little sweet treats and just, the little, niceties in life. And as long as the bills are paid, she can get a nicety every once in a while. She knows there's money in the accounts and she knows that the retirement accounts are always going up. The, net worth statement, that number at the top line of your net worth statement's always going up. As long as the money's flowing in the correct direction, she's very happy to not be involved with the finances.
How much is he making per month?
Her take home right now is $2,500 a month.
$2,500 a month. Okay, what does she do for a living?
She is a warehouse associate.
Okay, so $2,500. How much is your guys' cost of living on a monthly basis?
Our cost of living on a monthly basis is about $4,000.
So you have 1.5 that you're pulling from your emergency fund, pretty much.
Correct.
So in order for you to complete through the end of 2025, you need to tap into about 1/3 of your remaining emergency fund.
Yes.
Do you have any other forms of investments?
Being in the industry that I was in, you would see certain product, come across that was, a well-made, product that, had a lot of, hype behind it that, was obviously going to do very well.
So you're a collector.
The business did not pay for it. I paid for it out of my income, but, I still have a good amount of that product that I can still move.
How much are we speaking?
If I were to liquidate everything today, probably, so you'd go full value minus 20%. I could get another 25,000 out of it.
Now, the big question that I have, though, is do you have any form of debt against that?
No. So I have no consumer debt at all. I have one payment that I make to Best Buy for, $100 a month at 0% APR. And that's got 4 more payments on it. So I literally have $400 in quote unquote bad debt, and even then, that bad debt's sitting at a 0% APR and on interest. A payment plan for 0%. So no, I have no bad debt whatsoever.
Amazing. So let me just calculate that for you right now. In that case, my friend, today, pretty much you're worth about $410,000.
Correct. According to my numbers, because I have a app that I use to track all of my accounts, across, credit cards, bank accounts, investment accounts, the mortgage, everything else. I calculate $409,000.
All right. It is crazy when you think about it, James, that your business was, $268,000 of debt. You were able to, continue operations, pushing as far as you could, gathering debt, but filing for bankruptcy on that side and still protecting yourself to $400,000. It's crazy the chance that small business owners have in this country to really get a shot at it. You can still create wealth even when operations are not running as smooth as you would like. And, this is kind of a benefit of being a small business owner in America. Is that chance to try and make it, assuming that you're doing things the right way.
Just to be clear, obviously, almost all of that money is sitting in retirement accounts and in the home that we physically live in. So it's not like I could have liquidated those assets and saved my company. That really wasn't an actual feasible option.
No, I think that's fair. So you're pretty much coming here to the show and asking me, hey, Romain, can I continue to take a little bit of time off to kind of put myself back together? It's what's going on, right?
Is there something that I'm not seeing? Is it more dangerous than I'm perceiving for me to take my foot off the gas?
Do you have any children?
No.
Are you wanting to have any children in the future?
No.
Okay. Is the work of your wife pretty stable?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any big expenses that you're going to have that are going to come through that may be unexpected? I know it's tough to say, but anything medical, insurance that they should be aware of?
No. So through my wife's work, we both have very, very strong, very good insurance.
Do you have any parent that is going to need money from you on that front? Are you pretty much safe on both sides, you and your wife's side?
Yes.
Okay. With regards to your monthly expenses, you say you spend about, $4,000 per month or so. Are you able to maintain this cost of living while still being happy? You're not struggling in any way. It kind of gives you a good, comfortable lifestyle.
Yeah, we can maintain our current quality of life. It's honestly how we built up the massive savings that we have now is that even as, we were bringing home between the two of us, $7,000 a month, we were still living on $4,000 to $5,000, and the other $2,000 just went right into investment accounts.
Okay, very good behavior. So here is kind of my assessment for you, mate. Overall, I think that you've played the game well while still managing your passion, kind of trying to grow a business, and played the game pretty fair and kind of leveraged the benefits that America provided for you. At a first glance, your situation seems quite comfortable, and here is how I like to say, you've generated about $400,000 of net worth at your age. You're far above the median for your age bracket. You have a pretty comfortable living. You have a safe house in an area that, yes, Reno may be expensive, but you're not under the strain of, let's say, a location like New York or Seattle. The biggest thing that kind of makes me a little bit worried is the illiquidity aspect of your situation. Yes, you have $35,000 saved up, pretty much $2,000 negligible on your checking. That's just for ongoing operations. So right now you're kind of holding on that investment amount, or I guess that emergency fund. From a calculation standpoint, you would be running about 1/3 of that emergency to hold up to the end of 2025. But there is one red line that I would want for you to never tap into, is to fall below the $15,000 mark on your emergency fund. Because that's pretty much about 3 to 4 months of kind of survival if you were to run into that. So when I think about the grounds and the financial foundations that you've created, honestly, those are pretty solid. Again, and the fact that you're pretty protected across the different things that you've put in place, like your insurance, medical, hopefully for transportation as well. We haven't spoken much about that, but hopefully you're well protected on that front, given the fact that you don't really want to have right now any child that would come at, very strong expenses, and you don't see any big variance in the lifestyle that is about to come, as well as, parents not really in the question. In my mind right now, based on what you've probably experienced and the fact that you're rebuilding yourself, I would feel comfortable telling you that you can allow yourself till the end of 2025 to rebuild yourself up. Yes. From a financial standpoint, you've created enough of a means and of a financial backup to give you that luxury post the situation that you were in. However, it always comes from another side of the coin. When I think about those down moments, which every person and everyone I'm speaking to will have at some point in their life, being either, a business owner that's going down or a business that's shifting. I've had failed business as well. Or you just, became fire. And that's where the emergency come into play. It's not about, using this time for just purely chilling, right? The idea here is giving you the peace of mind and the free space for you to know about what is going to be your next, your next gameplay. I think from a finance standpoint, again, you need to be slightly more cash heavy. Okay, so when we think about retirement right now, assuming that your wife has a match, I would only contribute retirement to the match, and then both of you just max out your Roth IRA on a yearly basis, but don't push over that right now with regards to retirement funds. Like the goal for you is to maintain yourself as pretty liquid. You're missing on the liquidity aspect of your financial situation. Additionally, I would consider for each of you guys, although you guys are young, but there might be some medical complications on either side, to get some sort of short-term life insurance. At your age, you can find something for $500,000 that costs you $20 a month. And this is going to give you either sides financial reassurance that if something was to arise, especially for your wife, which tends to put a lot of the general responsibility on you, that if something was happened to you, she would be covered on that front. Okay.
Yeah. Right now, at the current moment, I do not have a life insurance policy, and my wife has a term life policy for $250,000.
Okay. Well, I like that, but you are, I think you would probably, being able to handle these whole financial complications if something was to arise to her. But I want it also to be vice versa on her side, that you can kind of give her that peace of mind, although, she probably assumes that things are all working pretty well.
Because of the fact that I am the steward of her finances, I am completely and totally 100% transparent. She has access to every single account. She has access to that same dashboard that shows literally everything. So she's completely, in the know. And she is also very supportive of me taking this sabbatical time.
I think you're in a pretty safe grounds. What I would also consider again is potentially consider transitioning some of your traditional IRA into Roth, again, because we don't know the taxation environment that will arise by the time you guys want to retire.
Can I even do that? Because since I opened the Roth, which was 4 years ago, something like that, I've maxed it out every year. So if I've contributed the max amount every year since I opened the account, is it possible to even move funds into that account at that point?
Yes, you're going to have a taxable event, so you're going to be taxed on the conversion, but you have no problem with being able to transition. You should be able to do that. The conversion isn't counted toward the limit, so you can convert as much as you want. The thing is, you have to be strategic to not go over certain brackets, so you maintain that. Generally, people that transition make it over a certain period, can be 1, 2, 3 years, depending on the amount. Because you have 70,000, I would probably do that over a 3-year period or so. and it's not going to be against the contribution amount that you had on your Roth IRA.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, if that's an option, I'm happy to look into it, because obviously the money in the Roth is, let's be honest, more valuable than the money that's in the SEP.
Yes. And then the other thing that I would want for you to start thinking about is just in the future as well, the way I've been wanting to build my businesses, and I'm speaking also to the viewer here, is build them in terms of a process, right? The idea is your time is not maximized behind the counter, selling those cards and so on, even if this was your passion, but it's building the right processes so that you're not employing yourself through your business, but you're actually multiplying your time. That's how I like to think of it. That's why I'm currently able to manage about 6 or 7 businesses, is because I'm building processes that I can then provide responsibilities to others that are going to, cost me less than the amount that I would be making. So when you think about your future business venture, James, you may consider that train of thoughts as you think about your next business, okay? And now, James, that you've also filed for Chapter 7 on your LLC, you're going to be prevented to open a new LLC under your name for the next 10 years. So the question that comes to you as you think about your next business venture is, was your wife or her social security tied in any way to the business that you were venturing before that?
No, my wife has never applied for a EIN, federal tax identification number.
So you have these options if you wanted to go entrepreneurial again, but you're putting that under the liability of your wife this time.
Correct.
So that's the downfall, but in some ways it kind of saved you from $250,000 that you had to take to maintain operations.
Yes.
James, as we wrap up our call, what do you have to say to maybe entrepreneurs or people that are in 9 to 5 that want to venture themselves in entrepreneur and feel that maybe it's going to be a fail, but look, you've in ways haven't been fully successful to grow the business to the scale at which you wanted, but you still been able to build a great life and great finances for yourself. What do you have to say to conclude this discussion together?
When you find success, it's kind of like raising a dog. It starts as a puppy, and that puppy doesn't need a whole lot of food to make it through the day. But as that puppy grows and gets bigger, that dog needs a whole lot more food as it reaches adulthood. And it's very easy to end up in a situation where your cost of doing business, your cost of day-to-day operations is continuing to go up as you're making more money, as you're finding more success, as you're seeing that revenue come in. You just want to keep getting it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you don't really understand how much risk you've put yourself in, how big that dog has become, and how much food it now demands of you to keep it alive, until something goes wrong and all of a sudden you can't afford to feed the dog anymore. And now you have to run around and try to figure out how to keep it alive.
I absolutely love what you just said, man. This is exactly it. Your analogy was actually spot on. So I really enjoyed that end of the episode. And I hope that I was able to answer as well your question, James. It was a pleasure to have you on the phone. Guys, if you have any big finance questions that you want to ask me, we're going to start taking application by using the link in the description below. Thank you, James, again for being with us on the show. And we hope to see you guys in our next episode. À bientôt.